Good morning, everybody. Do you want to make your dairy farm a more attractive place for the next generation? And do you want to increase the profitability of your dairy farm? So today, myself and Emer are going to go through the key things that drive the profitability of dairy farms, and then we're going to deal what will make your dairy farm attractive to the next generation. To look at, I suppose, initially profitability, we have to look back and see what has happened over the last decade. And this graph that we have here graphs the way milk price has gone, and at the first board, Lauren Chalou showed how we had a significant increase in costs in the last few years and how it has gone out of line with our purchasing index, particularly in the last 2 to 3 years. This graph here shows, our blue line here shows the milk price, and it's very volatile, but within reason it's outside of our control. Okay, the grey bars here represents the cost of production, and we were going really well for up until about 2021, operating at a cost of about 25 cents a litre. But since then, we've had a very significant inflation in costs. Some of it is driven by external factors, some of it is driven by how we manage our farms. Okay? The net effect of that was we suffered a massive drop in family farm income in 2023. Okay? We're now back in a very similar position in 2025 as we were in 2022. And are we prepared to let what happened in 23 happen again in 2026? I suppose what we want to deal with here is how we can make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. If we look at, I suppose, the key drivers of profitability on the dairy farm, and they haven't changed much over the last decade, but we've lost our way on some of them. If you look first at, I suppose, the key driver of genetics, having the right cow for the system, we can see that the EBI has increased substantially and is continuing to increase, and at the next board, Donna and Stephen are going to deal in more detail how we can continue to increase EBI. If we look at our other parameters, and they're highlighted here in orange, these are ones we're making some progress on, but not quite fast enough. We're not getting this technology onto farms quick enough. You can see 6-week calving rate, we've made significant progress, driven predominantly by the genetics. Another key driver of grass production on our farms is soil fertility. And you can see we're making some progress, but there's still an awful lot of farms that don't have adequate soil fertility, don't have adequate pH, adequate P and K levels. Labour efficiency, Emer is going to deal with a lot more in detail later, but it is something we still have a lot of labour used on our dairy farms. Pasture utilised, we know, is the key driver of profitability. Tons of grass utilised is what predicts profitability best on dairy farms. We have made some progress, but we're still a long way short of the potential, and it'll be dealt with in more detail on the fourth board. But I suppose what we're going to focus on here is the two parameters that are going in the wrong direction, where we're going backwards, okay, where we've really lost control of our costs in the last few years. And they are, we're substituting pasture for concentrates. Okay, we're feeding more concentrates to our cows now than what we were 10 years ago, and we're reducing the amount of pasture in the cow's diet. And that has a significant effect on profitability, and that is one of the key parameters that we have to address and change if we are to increase the profitability and get our costs down. We have a target here of a total cost, including labour, of €3.80, versus the average where we're at the moment is €5.65. Very quickly, if you do the sums, that net effect is about €800 to €900 per cow if you can get those costs back down, and they're driven by achieving these targets here in terms of pasture utilised. It is likely that 2025 is going to be a very good year financially, similar to 22. In 2022, most of the surplus cash that was on dairy farms was spent on farm machinery and some on farm buildings. Okay, what we would say, if you want to protect yourself from another year like 2023, you need to prioritise the investment in 25. Any surplus cash that is being invested, prioritise, and we have listed the priorities here. The first one, grazing infrastructure. Okay, it'll give us a very quick return on investment, best return on investment you'll get on a dairy farm. Getting soil fertility right, you can write it all off against tax this year. Getting reseeding done this year, great opportunity now that we have a lot of silage made. Good roadways, water infrastructure, so we can grow and utilise more grass. The second area for investment Second priority, slurry storage. We know, as well as being compliant, it will improve profitability on farms. Milking facilities, more units in the parlour. You'll see at the labour village later on, it's a key driver of the amount of time spent working on farms. Animal housing and handling, where there's a serious deficit, could be corrected in 2025. And if there is surplus, if you have all of these done at this stage, you can look at prioritising some automation technology, things that are proven to actually reduce the amount of time that's spent on your farm. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand you over to Emer, who's going to deal with making our dairy farm more attractive.
Thanks, Padraig. So as Padraig has mentioned, one of the key things that we need to do to ensure the future sustainability of our farms is to make sure that there's an attractive workplace. If we talk to young people today who are considering careers in any sector, they consider working hours, income and flexibility, three of the key factors. So you then need to ask yourself, what is your workplace an attractive place for somebody who's coming into the industry? If we take a study that was done by Conor Hogan, what we can see here is that the average farmer, they're working for about 60 hours per week. So this means that they're starting before 7, they're finishing after 7, so working about 12.3 hours per day and taking 19 days off. So that's not even 1 day a week. Now, if we move to the top 25%, what they're achieving is a 50-hour working week. So it means that they're starting again just before 7, but they're finishing before 6:30 in the evening, and the length of the day is 7.5 hours. And they're taking a little bit more time off at 33 days per year. Now, if we look at any other situations, outside of farming, careers that people are considering, here, what the people that you're trying to attract into the system are in competition with is a 45 or 48-hour working week, where we start at 7 and finish at 5. So in terms of farming, we're saying starting at 7, finishing before 6, so an 11-hour working day with over 60 days off per year. So that's 1 day a week and 2 weeks holidays. Now, in order to achieve this more efficient, better working week, the must-haves that you need to have a 16:8 milking interval in order to get that finish time before 6:30 in the evening. You need specialisation, so making the system as simple as you possibly can and getting contractors in to do as much work as possible. Your facilities also need to be efficient, and as Padraig mentioned, perhaps this is the year to invest in making your facilities more efficient, and also your work practices need to be streamlined. And as we've mentioned here, you need to build the farm team to make sure that your workplace is attractive, that people want to come and work with you. So the essentials that are required to innovate for resilience then are discussion groups. So it's really important to join your local discussion group. Currently, only 1 in 5 people are in discussion groups, and this is where you can get more technically efficient and learn a lot more information. Also, you need to improve personal and technical skills. For example, using things like pasture base, which you'll see on the grassland board and in the grassland village. And at the moment, only 1 in 10 people are on Pasture Base Ireland. And then finally, you need to look at business planning and benchmarking. And only 1 in 15 people are currently completing a profit monitor. So without doing this, it's very hard to see where you're going to need progress. So finally for today, to look at some take-home messages. Don't get distracted. You just need to focus on the basics. Get the simple things right and the rest will follow. You need to prioritise investment. Again, as Padraig outlined earlier, pick out the key things that you need to invest in this year and focus on that. And also, you need to make your farm a more attractive workplace so that people want to come and work for you, and more importantly, they want to stay on your farm for a long-term career.